Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching the Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it!
Here we go then, the final 10. I've got all the mascots out here. The Takinoko Panda, Yoder, my little Atiwa Fruit Bat, Dice Panda and of course Fizzgeek. Everybody's here for the show, so finally we're at the end of another top 100. I think maybe in the future I might just do top 50, I don't know, it might just be a lot quicker to get through 50 games rather than 100, especially when most people want to know about the top lot anyway. Well, I don't know, we'll have to see, but here, we're finally here. So I've done 100 to 81, 80 to 61, 60 to 41, 40 to 21, and then we've just done a batch of 10, which aired last weekend. And now we're finally on to the last 10. These are my 10 favourite games of all time as currently being played. And this top 10 can change wildly from year to year. Sometimes some are stayers, sometimes, new ones come in, sometimes old ones drop. It's just, it kind of depends. My tastes do change fairly, not too often, but as I play more games, you start liking certain mechanics more, you start appreciating certain other designs more. I mean, I nearly gave everyone a heart attack recently by actually getting a copy of Great Western Trail New Zealand. What? Because I think that's the proper decent Great Western Trail. And this is from somebody who, when I played the first edition Great Western Trail about 6-7 years ago, hated its guts. And granted, I will still never play the first edition ever again. But New Zealand just kind of did something, it kind of triggered something, I don't know. But maybe it's just that 6-7 years down the line, I'm kind of like, yeah, alright, fine, it's deck building on the side, it's a thing. And you know what, the second edition does streamline it a little bit, make some improvements, and New Zealand does make it a bit more open, more strategies, more options. So, these little things do add up, but, tastes can change.
Everybody can change!
And certainly on this list, it's no exception because we have got 4 new games in the top 10. So 4 games have come out, well, not necessarily come out in recent years, but have certainly appeared that have done so well for me. Either they're getting played really often, or I think about wanting to play these a lot, or they just end up being a staple game that I want to get played at conventions, that kind of thing, and they have managed to rise above it. As for the rest, well, some are fairly stable, but there are some shifters. Only one game has actually stayed in the same position as it was last year, so there's a little teaser for you. And one game rose quite considerably to be in the top 10, which I think has come down to some recent plays of it, and I think just appreciating it more. So, without further ado, that's enough teasers. It's time to finally, and for the last time for this top 100, to get on with it. Number 10 drops 4 places from number 6, and this is easily my favourite party game. I mean, you might be thinking, how on earth does a party game get in your top 10? Well, this one is party / social deduction, slash Dixit, because this is my favourite game of all the Dixit range, and it's been in my top 10 I think for the last 2, maybe 3 years. It certainly has been popular with me, but I love to get this one out whenever I can, and it always goes down well. I've never had a dud game of Detective Club. This tin box, which I wish it wasn't a tin, frankly, but this game still is just one I adore. It's so much fun. I've even expanded it with more cards from the expansion, and you saw my, if you've been paying attention to my Instagram lately, you'll have noticed my box downstairs with all my Dixit cards. I can throw in whatever Dixit cards I like in here. But this just really cool game where you're trying to, lie about whether you are the odd person out. It borrows a little bit from Spyfall, that original game, where one person's the odd one out and everyone's got to try and figure out who the odd one is. Well, the idea with this is that you're playing Dixit cards. A clue word has been fought up by, the one person in the round. These notepads have been played out with all but one of them being blank. So all but one of you knows what the clue word is in advance and one of you doesn't. But the problem is you have to portray the fact that you know what the clue word was by Dixit cards. And just because somebody uses the clue word cheese doesn't mean you've got anything in your hand that is remotely to do with cheese, to do with food, to do with the color yellow, to do with mice, whatever. And so in turn everybody has to try and describe and convince the others why they knew what the clue word was and why their cards relate to cheese, even though chances are it really doesn't. It's a great way of hiding the odd one out, because obviously the odd one out has to kind of figure things out on the fly, but even the people who know what it is can still appear dodgy because their cards suck so much. It generates a barrel of laughs. I mean, whether you play this with people with crude sense of humors or sixth sense of humors, that kind of thing, but even if you just play like family settings, this thing just always goes over well. I absolutely adore Detective Club. It's easily my favorite Dixit game, probably easily my favorite party game. There is no contest in that regard. You know, whenever this is brought out for preferably about 5 to 7 players, I'd say is a good, can you play it with 7 players? Pretty sure, it goes up to 8, so 8 is probably a bit much, but I mean 5, 6 players ideally, you get a group of you playing this and it is just such a barrel of laughs. I just wish it wasn't in a tin because it's already getting dented in places. You kind of have to buff it out, but that blemish aside, love everything else about this.
Oh wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Number 9 is one of the new games. Yes, this game has released only in 2023 and is easily been a game that I have played a lot, both solo and multiplayer. I've been happy to teach this. I've even once had to teach it 3 times over because new people had joined in. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'll go through the teach again because it doesn't take long to teach and it's a great, fun game to play. I am definitely a sucker for this kind of theme, I would admit. This theme just makes it nicer for me to play one of these games because I'm into this kind of stuff, you know, from a relaxation point of view. And yes, it's going to tick off some people in regards to playing this game because, you know, there are some people who divisively like hate this game and love this game, and I can totally see why you wouldn't like it, but you know, for the rest of us, it's still a phenomenal game, one that has done so well. It's won awards, it's captured the hearts of a lot of people, and that is, of course, right behind me. You know it. You know it's coming. Yep. New on the list. Earth. Earth is just one of these games that has managed to really win me over, and it already sort of won me over at first. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10, but it's gone up since then, and I've had to, like, you know, pimp this one out slightly. I mean, I've got some like reference aids that I've printed out, folded space insert, so the new folded space insert with the colored backgrounds and that. Get this insert is brilliant for this game. Everything is just in nice clean boxes, you know, with little like pictures and photos on the side, and it just stores in here so nice, so neat. I'm trying to do it in my left hand, which is tricky, with sleeved cards. I mean, it's just such a great little game, this one. I mean, it's not, you know, some people sort of go, oh, it's too light, or it's not like, it's these combos are boring, it's not like a fun engine builder. It's not meant to be a brain-burning engine builder. It's meant to be kind of, you know, lots of simple abilities you trigger off, and that's what I get out of this. Because yeah, okay, theme is neither here or there. You're building up a tableau of cards, and we've seen this kind of engine builder before, but it's just the simplicity of it. The simultaneous turns means that you don't have any downtime in this game. The game might take a bit longer because you're waiting for certain people to finish their turns, but for the most part, downtime doesn't exist here, and that's something that a lot of simultaneous games don't. You know, they might minimize downtime to an extent, but they don't then have the fun game to go with it. This one does. Having all those little abilities that you can trigger off. Right, you're going to take the blue action, I'm going to trigger this, and then I might trigger this, and I could give out a cube of some soil. All right, fine, I might do that, get some soil. That gives me more soil. Oh, we can get even more cubes there on the adjacent floor. Well, okay, I'll put some there, and it's a lot of these little simple decisions. There isn't one giant meaty decision. There's a lot of little simple light ones, and it means that the game doesn't feel too brain burny and scratches a good itch of being a lighter game in this fair, you know, for engine building and for simultaneous play. But when I teach this, you know, the vast majority of people enjoy this. You know, not everybody enjoys it. You know, it's not for everybody. I will give it that.
I'll turn you into a f***ing tree.
Even solo mode is very easy to operate in this. It's just literally a small deck of cards that you flip and do something for the AI, essentially, Gaia. And that creates a good fun time because I can have all the fun with my little tableau of 16 cards whilst trying to beat effectively a target victory point number. You know, it's not beat your own score. The AI will score based on what you do, but you know, it's something a little bit different without necessarily simulating a full multiplayer opponent. Now, of course, I don't want to play this with 5 players often because it does say 1 to 5. 5 is right out, as we know. But I kind of like, you know, prefer to play this as usually a 3-player game. 3-player game I think is really good with this. 2 works great, but I don't often get this to the table with 2. I have played it 4 recently to teach people, and it's worked quite well. I think 4 is the absolute max that you should do. In fact, did I play a 4-player at this at Iceland? You know, funny enough, yeah, the picture at the front being from Iceland, I've actually played this at Iceland to teach people. I think it might have been a 3-player game at that one, but as I say, that went over well and people enjoyed it, so this one just gets a lot of plays. You know, it frequently enters my bag, and as a result, it means that it gets played often, whether it's a solo or a multiplayer. And with the insert, it means that setup is nice and quick, and you just get going, especially if people know what they're doing with the game. The setup for this can be done in like mere minutes. It really is that quick. So yeah, well done, Maxime. I mean, I never really had much dealings with inside up games before, and obviously I think this is a new designer to my knowledge, but you've created a game that I really love. And I mean, I want to be here. I want to be standing on this ridge where this photo was taken right now. Damn, that is gorgeous. But yep, I know some of you don't like it, but I love it. Earth.
Captain Planet, mother.
Number 8 has dropped 3 places from 5, so it's still a decent, consistent contender in my top 10, and it's easily probably the best, yes, it is easily the best 2-player only game that I know of. You know, there are other games on this top 10 that, you know, I would happily play with 2 players. Some of them are very good at 2 players, but this one can only be played with 2 players, or solo if you get the unofficial it was official, an official solo mod that you have to download from Asmodee's website. But other than that, I usually just like to play this with 2 players, particularly with the first expansion. And yep, you've guessed it already. It's small, it's compact, it's linked to one of my other favourite games. It's Seven Wonders Duel. This thing is just amazing. Now, I didn't actually really get into the Agora expansion, but there seems to be a few people out there that do like it. I just thought it was too finicky, too much on top, and didn't really give me anything interesting to do. Whereas the Pantheon expansion, which I have in here, is one that if anybody knows Seven Wonders Duel already, it's an auto-include. The idea of being able to pay money to use those god powers and sort of stop the flow of the back and forth choosing of the cards. Like, you know, I don't want to go next and choose a card. That's all rubbish for me. You know what? I got a bit of gold. I'm going to trigger this lady's power over here, and now suddenly you've got to choose a card. Oh, what's the matter? You ain't got enough money for a god? Ah, sucks to be you. And, you know, being able to do that just changes the tempo of the game really nicely. But even if I just play the base mode, which I can do on the app, you know, there's an app for it, there's a Board Game Arena, which is really good for it, or just playing it 2-player with somebody here. It's just a very good game. There's a box of art for you. You know, and this one I think's long since had an insert in it to hold all the pieces, although you don't desperately need an insert for it, but it's just, oh yeah, it's even got metal coins. I've really pimped this one up. But it's just such a fun game, back and forth, open drafting, with the Seven Wonders iconography, with the sort of styling and style of play, having the little asymmetric wonders that you can have, but just such a good tug of war back and forth, especially with the 2 alternate victory conditions, because most of the time you will win by points, but there is always the threat that someone might get full military or full science, and I have won by both of those pretty much equally. It really does depend on what cards come out and how you play and how the opponent plays, but having that threat there just always puts you on your toes, and it leads to some very tense finishes. Like, you know, you're going to win if we go to points, but if I can get the right military cards, I win that way.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
You don't sort of feel that you're on the back foot and you're just going to get annihilated this game, because there could be a way out. There's a ton of fans for this game. I don't really know anybody that hates it. I mean, there's some people that maybe don't go mad for it, but to hate this one, I don't know how you could. You know, Antoine Bowser and Bruno Cafala. It's a good combination of designers to have for a 2-player game. In fact, does this one have, oh god, yeah, it's even got, yeah, I think the artist, I think Antoine Bowser and the artist for this game basically like got me to do, yeah, I don't know if you can see that easily there, but they drew like a Roman legionnaire and signed this one, so this is a signed copy as well. Essen 2015. That was 8 years ago. Oh my god, I feel old. But yeah, that must have been one of my first Essens. Maybe that could have been the first Essen. Was it the first Essen I went to, 2015? It could well be. Oh, blimey, hitting a nostalgia trip. But yep, Seven Wonders Duel, it's amazing. My favourite 2-player only game, again, without contest. Wrong! Alright, my 7 is a new game to the top 10, so this one has shot all the way up here. It doesn't get played as often as anything else on this top 10 though, and that's because it's a huge game, primarily one I will play solo, although I have occasionally played it 2 or 3 players. You know, I think I even did a 4-player with Paul Grogan once, but those are very rare occasions. This is primarily a solo game for me. It is one of the most thematic games I own. It is a gritty setting, much like another one that was on my list earlier, and I think I might have been one of the first games, maybe the first game I reviewed of 2023, all the way back in January, but It was a Kickstarter that I was really looking forward to because the video game it's based on I really enjoyed, and so I was hoping, like really hoping, that this game would do justice to the IP, and it does. Frostpunk is my number 7. Frostpunk the board game is just a wonderfully thematic, wonderfully made, board game with narrative storytelling, in a sense, with like the event cards that happen, but also just a really good sense of, I don't know, dread. I mean, dread in a good way. You are trying desperately to have your people survive. You're trying to keep them healthy. You're trying to keep them warm. You're trying to keep the generator from blowing up, but it's hard to do all those things. And each person will have a particular role, or if you're solo, you just control everything. And it's kind of like a worker placement game for the most part, because you've got your workers of different types, and they can go on the different hexes and buildings to do their effects. But it feels like you are constantly trying to do well in this, and like trying to survive. And I know I speak badly on some Euro games, saying, oh, it's punishing me, it feels too restrictive and horrible. That's a competitive Euro game when it does that. A survival co-op game, I don't mind if it makes me feel like that, because that's kind of the point. You're supposed to work together against all odds to try and beat the game. And in this one, blimey, are you against all odds? So much so that you really ought to get the easy scenario cards from the official publisher's website, because if you use the normal ones, then good luck trying to win the game. Because there's a decent amount of luck involved with some of those card draws, and so trying to do it on normal, or some people try to do it on hard. What kind of sadist are you? That's insane. But it looks great. A big playmat in the table with the snowy hexes, the giant generator module in the middle. I had that stupid iceberg box for ages. Thankfully, I got rid of that. That was a waste of time, that was. But, with folded space, I was able to get everything into the original boxes for the Frostpunk, so it's a bit more condensed. But man, I don't get this one played often because it requires a bit of time and investment. I got to relearn some of the rules, and I've got to have this entire table devoted to it, and it's not going to get like, it might get left on the table to do it multiple times, who knows, but it's an investment to get it back. But man, every time I see it on my shelf, I'm like, oh man, when can I next play some Frostpunk? Oh, this will be good. And when conventions come around, I'm almost tempted to bring it along. Of course, though, that does mean teaching new players Frostpunk, which I do enjoy, but then this one does feel like a really good solo game. Just a big, epic, narrative solo game that I can enjoy. And, oh man, is this game so good. I mean, it is one of the best. Is it the best? Probably not the best, but it is one of the best video game ports I have seen to a board game. It just does it so well. And it gets me excited for Frostpunk 2 that's going to release on PC and early access at some point, so I'll be certain to check that one out. It's weird because I don't normally go for these kind of sort of RTS like strategy style games where you're trying to, micromanage all this stuff and and you're against the odds, because usually I find them too difficult. I'm not usually very good at those games, but Frostpunk just has the setting, it has the gritty theme to draw me in. Having those story points pop up every now and again saying like, so some kids are playing over there in the caves over there. We've told that those caves are dangerous. They shouldn't go in there. Do we tell them to stop doing it and, are not the most popular around, or do we just leave them there? Come on, they're kids, let them play. It's horrible out here. The world is going to pot. Let them be children. Yeah, go on, let them be children. Little Jimmy hurt his leg and now he's got to have it amputated.
Wow, that was pretty brutal even by my standards.
No backsies.
Oh God! It's like nasty stuff can happen as a result of your decisions, and it's just so much fun to go through that. Watch Paul Grogan's playthrough that we did as a 4-player when it was first getting done. We kind of semi-arranged it, but we basically had a sort of big argument as to like, right, are we going to put children into a daycare center, or are you going to make them work in the factories? That's the kind of decision making on a moral ground you are doing in this game, and it's just so much fun.
Here you go.
Love this one. Frostpunk has shot up straight into my top 10 at number 7.
You're sick!
My number 6 is The Anomaly. Although, is it an anomaly really? Because I do like this game more and more as I play it. It is still my favourite from this designer and publisher. I even played it in Iceland. I taught it to 2 or 3 new players. I think I taught it to 3 players, and it was a good fun experience. I might have even played it again at HandyCon. I mean, it was a great fun experience there. This is easily Lacerda's best game. Easily his best game. There is no contest now. It is easily probably his most thematic game, and I don't care what you lot try to convince me on with Weather Machine, you know, and stuff like that. No, Kanban is easily the best game by Lacerda. Fact. Okay, absolute fact. This one is brilliant, and this is shot up. What does it say? It's shot up? It's shot up 27 places. So this thing was 33 before. It's now in my top 10 games, because every time I play this behemoth, I just like it more and more. And I think the setting and relatable theme does such a good job of that. I mean, firstly, it helps me teach the game because you can relate to a lot of this stuff, like trying to dodge your boss Sandra, you know, when she's in a slightly ticked off mood, and, you know, and making cars. I like cars. I mean, I love my little Bessie, my yellow Suzuki Swift Sport, you know, just had new tires on it, and now she handles like really cool. So, you know, I like cars, I like driving, but you know, this one just building cars in a factory and dodging your boss. The theme is great and the gameplay is great. The solo mode is a bit on the complicated side, but then it's a Turksy design, that's kind of normal. But I have played the solo mode in this, and it is still good fun, where you're trying to not get fired as a moment's notice. But man, I've printed out some like, yeah, special memory jogger reference aids for this, a solo play sheet, so I can play this easier. But I'm not going to get everything out because it's all underneath this like red thing here. But the components you get in this box are stellar. It's so nice. The board, I mean, bear in mind, I used to have this from the original Stronghold Games version, okay? I used to have that one, and it was such a good game, and it really won me over. But the problem is the graphic design in the original one was really bad, really bad. But Ian O'Toole worked his magic on this, and this one has brilliant graphic design. Very little in this do I have a problem with the iconography. Tested designs are still a little bit on the fiddly side to explain, but other than that, but oh man, the components you've got in here. Now, you know what? Let's just take out let's see if I can get the red thing off without dislodging everything. So here we go. So I've got dual recess boards. You've got thick counters, and I mean thick. I mean, for crying out loud, the books alone in this game. You've got like a tray down here. These are just books that you spend for the, you know, training up or something, and they literally are giant thick bits of cardboard. I mean, I could almost eat these as a massive Godstopper or something. They're that huge. And then you've got the, you know, screen printed wooden cars. Do not buy the metal cars. They are not worth it.
It is just that the luxury edition has so much more ego.
They look okay, but frankly, I think the wooden ones look better, and they also don't cost £1 million like the metal cars do.
My parents are paying and they're incredibly rich.
Oh man, I've played it twice in the last like couple of weeks, and this was after obviously I made the list. I mean, I made the list before I played this game over those couple of weeks. So this list, Kanban had already hit my top 10 by the time I'd done those. I played it twice more recently, and I'm like, yeah, I'm happy that this thing shot up nearly 30 places to get into my top 10, because it's just such a fun Euro game. I absolutely love it. I never want to, you know, resist turning down this if this is the choice of the Lacerda title. Now, you know, you've seen me talk about all four of them. So yes, Lisboa is my fourth favorite. Vinhos is probably my third favorite. I think that's how I had it. You know, Galerist is my second favorite, and I just played it last night actually, and it still is probably my second favorite Lacerda. But man, Kanban used to be my second favorite. With this new version, it easily became my new favorite. It's amazing what a bit of a graphic design improvement and some, you know, some streamline of some of the rules, you know, make it less fiddly. It's amazing what you can do to something when you just give it a little love and care and a little bit of extra development time. But yeah, Kanban EV, the best Lacerda game. Fact, deal with it.
Right after you eat this!
My number 5 is a new game to the list. Yes, this is there are 2 more games now, including this one, that are new to my top 10. And I've been talking about, well, I might give it away too much. This one is a game that I had on Kickstarter, and I paid a bit too much for it. I mean, it is a very expensive game, and it was probably the last time when I went, oh, I shouldn't spend this much on a Kickstarter. This is way too much, and it's a gamble. It's a new publisher. It's taking something that I like outside of board gaming and turning it into a board game. Can they do it? Should I spend the money? fun. Last minute, I gave in and pressed the button. And then I had to wait a year and a bit for it to come in because everybody else got it in December time or November time, and I had to wait in the UK until something like February before it like came into my hands. And once I played it, aside from, some rulebook, issues that were there, which I did eventually conquer, it's not a flawless game by any means, but man, theme and gameplay wise, this game is a perfect board game port from the video game that is Deep Rock Galactic.
Rock and stone, brother!
This one I reviewed in December, gave it a 10 out of 10. I love it. Yes, the rulebook is not perfect, and there will be some FAQ moments that you're going to have to deal with. As I say, it's not flawless, but this is not a complex game, so those FAQ moments are dealt with a lot easier than in a proper Euro game. But also, it's a co-op, so if you do end up with a situation where you're not entirely sure how it works, it's a co-op. You can kind of make it up as you go along, really. It's different from a competitive Euro game where you must get the rules correct, otherwise it imbalances everything. Here, you're just enjoying the time, but this one is one that I love teaching people at conventions because a lot of people don't have this game because it hasn't hit its retail version yet. So when I bring it to things like HandyCon and GridCon, instantly people fill up the slots to play it, which is great because then I can teach 3 new people and have a 4-player co-op with 1 player controlling each of the dwarfs to go fight these bugs, and it's so much good thematic fun with a lot of group discussion and everybody gets into their dwarf with their special guns and stuff. It's just a cool system. And, yes, it uses dice. It's slightly Amerifrash-y, but I do like some Amerifrash games when they're co-op, and it perfectly represents the video game itself, though. I mean, there are like a few little things that they change for artistic merit and also to make it work in a board game. You have to change 1 or 2 things for poetic license here. But I still play this video game like every now and again. In fact, I might even play some tonight. I played some the other night. It's one that because I don't want to toot my own horn, but because I'm really good at it and I've leveled up to a great extent, I don't really have any main missions to do, so I literally just go, I got 20-30 minutes spare and I just feel like a bit of a shoot 'em up. I can literally just fire it up, find a group and just go enjoy a couple of games of it and then turn it off and then go do something else. It's quick and pick up and play, and this one doesn't even take that long to set up. I mean, it's a big box, I haven't got it up here, but the miniatures are mostly at the bottom, so you can just take them out of the box when you need it, but the counters, they're all in one big tray, so you just set them up on the board. Play mat, the scenario booklet, you just make the scenario, which will take you probably about 5 minutes to populate the scenario. It is not the shortest thing in the world, but it's not too bad either. And then you just get going, and the actions are straightforward. You've got a bunch of actions you can do. You do 3 actions, rinse, repeat, not rinse, repeat. You can repeat some of the actions, and you draw an event card to see what the bugs in that do. Rinse, repeat, 3 actions, card, 3 actions, card, and try and do the objectives. So good. And some people have complained that it's a little too easy. If you play it on hazard level 1 or 2, yes, it is a bit too easy. Play it on hazard level 3 though, and the challenge rating is just right, I feel. In fact, we actually lost a game at HandyCon recently. I taught it to 3 new players, and we played the Essen promo map. Something in Gems and Eggs or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was at Essen last year where the publisher released it as a promo map. So I thought, let's try it. It's a veteran difficulty map, and these are new players. You know what? We're going to have a bit more of a challenging game. We were so close to finishing. I was the only one that got to the drop pod, and then it had to leave.
Long live the king.
In the video game, that would be fine because I would survive and the other 3 would just get dropped from the top, like like they do in the video game. But you have to all survive in the board game, so we lost the scenario. But man, we were trying. We were going to the last minute. It's like, come on, get in. No! That's how a good co-op should be, that right amount of challenge. But yeah, if you have not played the video game, by all means do so, because it's a really great game from an indie publisher. But even if you've not played the video game, this is still a great fun scenario-based, not stupidly long campaign, no 12 mission campaign nonsense here. Hopefully the expansion doesn't ruin that with its sort of, I can't remember what it was doing with the space rig thing. But, I don't want a 12 mission campaign or nonsense like that. I just want to be able to pick a scenario, go in, do it, and you can play this solo with the Bosco robot, and it works just as well as if you were playing it multi-handed with dwarfs. So 1, 2, 3 or 4 players, I am happy enough to play this game, and it is just so much fun. Well done, Mood Publishing. You paid respect to the thematic license it was based on, and when games do that, they just work. They work so much better. Right, we're getting into it. Number 4. Number 4 has been on the list before, and this one has dropped a certain amount of places. And some of you aren't going to be very happy about this because for some of you this would be your favorite game of all time. Well, to be fair, for at least 1, maybe 2 years, this was my favorite game of all time. Yes, it's dropped 3 places. This is no longer my number 1 game. I haven't played this in a little while, which is why I felt it had to drop below my top 3, but it's still a fantastic game. I mean, when I play it multiplayer at conventions, it's a fantastic time. If I play it solo on the app on Steam or, you know, in person, which I prefer, oh man, is it fun. And the recent expansion, you know, added some new, you know, really cool, some really cool, like, powers to have and cards to use. Of course, I am talking about the meaty as hell brain burner that is Spirit Island. Spirit Island used to be my favorite game. It is now my 4th. Oh, woe is me. My cup runneth over with sorrow. You know, this is still a fantastic game, okay? I like playing it solo. I like playing it with people who actually know more than me as to what they're doing, because I kind of like to be the noob in this game, where I can go, yeah, I can contribute and still do a good job, but you know what? If somebody needs to pilot the game and ensure we can actually beat one of these higher difficulty, like, adversaries, I need people who know the game better than I do, so there's plenty of them out there, because if I do solo against harder difficulties...
Where's my money? Where's my money?
Most of the time I just get my ass whooped, so it doesn't go down too well. But Nature Incarnate, the new expansion, it brought in some really cool spirits to use, including, like, you know, I always said that I wasn't a fan of Thunder Speaker. The new dog spirit, you know, with the Dahan that it uses. Oh man, do I love that spirit. It's got to be one of the most powerful in the set. But even the rest of them are just really cool spirits. And what I love about this is, yes, I can play it solo or multiplayer and still have a great time. But it's just the Great Eden games have this great sense of really sticking to theme. And I know this sounds like a broken record. I love theme in games. It's a co-op. I love co-ops. I mean, we've just had Deep Rock Galactic, we've had Frostpunk, you know, and, you know, there may be another co-op coming up in a minute, but, you know, co-ops are games that I really like because, you know, you're fighting the game. You're not fighting other players. So as long as you get past the alpha player issue, which, to be honest, most of the co-ops these days kind of don't have alpha player issues. And I haven't actually seen many alpha gamers in a long, long time. And I'm certainly not one of them. So I think that kind of issue with co-ops has kind of died out now as time goes on. But I suppose some of you have got some horror stories, and by all means, share them in the comments. It'll be a fun read. But this is just so good. The theme for every spirit, how the ocean one, you know, ocean waves come in and out and it drowns people. How the fear spirits, which are my favorite spirits, I love playing the ones that like to win on fear. How they scare the invaders off and one of them sucks them into a black void. Another one, one of my favorites is the cat one. What's it? I can never remember their names, but Fangs at night or something. Okay, Fangs do something. But, you know, the cat one that likes to use beast tokens. It's not one of the more powerful beasts. It's actually a fairly weak beast in comparison to some of the others, but it's a good fun one to play. And who doesn't want to effectively be like this shadowy kitty cat that goes and like sort of takes invaders and goes, you're mine, nom nom nom. You know, it's just really cool stuff like that. Oh man, it really burns the brain cells, and I'm certainly probably after all this time still only an intermediate level player at it. But hey, it may not be my number 1 anymore, but it's still my number 4. It's still a game I absolutely love. I think I am done with expansion content now. We do not need any more spirits for this game. We have way too many as it is. You know, but man, to bring this out solo, because I don't tend to like playing this two-handed, it's too much to juggle, you know, I still really get a kick out of it. You know, the app's decent, although I wish it had all the expansions to it, and playing this multiplayer at conventions does a good job as well. Spirit Island is still a fantastic game, definitely not for everybody, but for the really heavy-duty gamers that want a co-op that's thematic, it's definitely up there.
Listen, you just gotta give me more time.
My number 3 is a new game to the list. Yes, this is the last of the new games, and wow, if you told me a year ago that a game like this could possibly hit my top 10, let alone my top 3, I would have called you insane. I would have committed you immediately, and perhaps I need to be committed for this, because this game is one that I never thought I would get into this much. You know, especially with this theme, with this much complexity, with this much you got to think about. But it just works. It's such a clever design with asymmetric roles that work. Even though there's asymmetric roles, they still overlap and link together, so it's not quite as tricky as, say, something like Root or Merchant's Cove, where the roles are so different in how they play. But it looks great on the table. The theme is represented so well. I mean, it's fictional in the game, but man, does it portray like real life ones quite well. The expansion added the ability to play this solo, which I like doing, with multiple AI opponents. Can't wait for their new one that they're going to preview later this year, which may be one of the only Kickstarter previews I want to do, because obviously I'm excited to try it. But yeah, I can't believe it. Hegemony, lead your class to victory. It's my number 3.
This man is overgasped!
Straight into my number 3. Every convention I get this played. Every convention I want to play it. Even at home, if I had more time, I would love to get it out and play it solo a few times, even on Tabletop Simulator if need be. But yeah, I cannot remember a convention I've been to, other than the Iceland one recently, because that was a shorter one, where I have not played at least one, if not two, if not on one occasion 3 games of Hegemony over the weekend. I mean, when it first got fulfilled to Kickstarter backers and I was showing it to people, I played it 3 times at BayCon. And then at other conventions I've played it at least once, if not sometimes twice. I've booked a game for myself to teach it, and then somebody else has gone, we got a spare slot for Hegemony, anybody want in? It's not going to finish until 1 in the morning. This is probably a bad idea, but it's like, you know, I get easily coaxed into these ones. And yeah, it's weird because social class politics isn't a theme that I suddenly go goo goo gaga for. But it works well here, and it leads to some hilarious banter between players, as we're calling the working class peasants.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed! Bloody peasant!
The capitalist scum, the corrupt state, the middle class are all basically vegan avocado eaters. I don't know. It's there's so much banter that goes on with the players, and it's very long. I mean, it can take easily 3 hours, sometimes 4 to 5, depending who you're playing with. It's very complex. It's very interactive, and as much as I rag on certain other games for being too long, too complex, too many rules and things like that, I mean, okay, I know I'm beating around the bush here, but Voidfall's a good example. You know, I like the game, but it's a lot of faff for it. But Hegemony just does these things right because, firstly, it's interactive. So there's no like multiplayer solitaire nature here. It's not I'm playing this 4 or 5 hour game and I'm just sitting there waiting for other people to take their turn. Here, you need to pay attention to what everyone's doing. Everything everyone does impacts everybody. It's not like someone does something and it's like, oh yeah, whatever, that's just for you. It's like, no, this is important. I need to know, particularly if I'm playing the state. But it does that interaction well. Yes, there's a bit of direct interaction, but you know, it's going around to everybody. It's all equal opportunity at this point. But the theme is done so well, as I mentioned. I love a good thematic Euro. If you're going to give me a 5-hour Euro, make it thematic. Don't just make it generic fantasy, generic space, or some Euro building a medieval city or whatever. Give me stuff like Kanban. Give me stuff like, I'm trying to think, like Fields of Arle. Give me stuff like, I'm trying to look at my list from before, the Lost Ruins of Arnak, you know, there are some dry Euros that I still like that can take a while, but certainly if you're going to make me spend 4 hours on a game, then make it interactive, thematic, and fun. And 4 different classes, which I enjoy playing them all. You know, all 4 classes are good fun, and I do find myself playing the middle class and the state a lot because they're not the best ones to have newish players in, but hey, I will take any class and I'll happily play it and have a good time. And the thing that makes me laugh with this one is that whenever you get these games with asymmetric roles, everybody will always go out and there'll be threads everywhere going, this one's overpowered, this one's overpowered, this kind of thing. And granted, I do that on a few games where I say something's blatantly overpowered, although in the case of Stonemaier, it's usually easier to pick those ones out. But with Hegemony, though, this one actually, and the publisher made a designer, I think, made a big deal of this, and I thought it was great, where he said that Hegemony is the first game to have one thread, at least, for every single class in the game claiming it's overpowered. Most games do not have that. Usually a certain subset will get the ones that are overpowered. But no, there have been people saying that the working, middle, capitalist, and state classes are all overpowered at some point. That's a pretty good achievement to make. And I'm not saying that means that the game is perfectly balanced, but I think the balance here is a lot better than people would make it out to be. If I was to, you know, a gun to my head and tell me, Luke, which one do you think is slightly more powerful than the rest? I'd probably say the state, honestly, because the state can earn a lot of points, mainly just by helping other players and them taking all their stuff. But the state player still needs to have an idea of how the other free players are doing in order to do well. But certainly, yes, I have had games where the state has, got such a big lead and you have to reel them back. And newish players don't quite know how to combat the state well enough. Like, you must tank the state at least once in every game. You've got to. You can't let the state just run away with it. Tank them at some point. Let the IMF intervene, but new players, it's hard to convince them of that. Oh, I could rabbit on about this game for so long, but I mean, you might think, why is it not my number one? Well, it is a very long game. It's not one that hits the table very often, and so there is that. It's a lot of rules. It's one that I prefer to only play with people who know the game rather than teach it. So there are little blemishes to this game that would hurt it being my number one or number two. But my God, a 4+ hour interactive Euro game with asymmetric roles about social class politics. You hit number 3 in my top 10. You guys at Hegemonic Project Games should be bloody proud.
Ah, smug mode.
My number 2 is another co-op, and that's probably narrowed it down immediately. Yes, this one is a game that has frequently been in my top 5 of all time. In fact, I think it's probably never left my top 2 of all time, actually. It is a fantastic thematic co-op. It's one of the earliest games I've played. I still love it now, particularly in its definitive edition version, which really did a good job at making it more, slightly more streamlined and easier to grasp for people with the wording and graphic design they use. It did such a good job. I love thematic co-ops, I love superheroes, and Sentinels of the Multiverse, of course, is a game that I still love to play and show. I love teaching people this game. I love playing it solo, free-handed. I mean, most games I don't like to play multi-handed, but Deep Rock Galactic from earlier, but even is probably one exception. But this one, you've got to play it multi-handed. You can't play it solo with one deck. You've got to control multiple decks. I can control 3 decks just fine with 1 villain and 1 environment and still have a great time and get it done in a reasonable amount of time. But even just playing this multiplayer, there are some people I know who love Sentinels and Multiverse as well, and so we can play this game on a, we can play this regularly if I'm not trying to review other games, and it's just so much fun. The superheroes are just a theme I love anyway. I love Marvel, I love DC, yes, the movies are hit and miss, but, I just genuinely love superheroes. And, Marvel Legendary, as much as I don't play that anymore, was a game I played a lot, and Sentinels just I think Sentinels not being based on an IP was a good thing. Yeah, there's this own lore that they've created for it, but it's not based on Marvel or DC. Yes, it's parodying a few of them, perhaps, like Bunker is blatantly Iron Man, Legacy is blatantly like Captain America, Superman, and that kind of thing, and the Wraith is basically Batgirl. But, and that makes it easier for me to teach. I can just ask people, what's your favourite Marvel superhero? And they go, oh, I really like the Flash. Well, here's Tachyon, use that deck. And I must admit, I do like Tachyon. She's one of my favourite heroes to play. But man, you can create cool little combos, and it's that classic thing of the villain beats you down at the start as you're trying to set up, and then you eventually get to a point where the villain's a little weaker, you're getting stronger, and you can claw it back, and then, you punch them in the face. Just like most superhero movies, it always starts off that way. Villain gets the upper hand, then you get stronger, you recover, and then you get the upper hand. Or the villain beats you, I guess. It depends how well you do.
I hope they remember you.
So many heroes to pick from with the definitive edition, and I've only got 1 expansion so far. The Kickstarter's a bit late with the newest one, but each one that comes out is going to have a lot of content, and if I don't want to play the definitive edition, I can just go play the massive box of the old first edition that I've got with the Cauldron stuff, which was like a fan-made expansion for it, and I've got all the content for that. So I literally have endless replay value for this game. And yes, there is the slight issue with it that it involves quite a lot of triggering of cards, and it can suddenly be a little bit like, oh my god, how do I keep track of all this? A bit like our Spirit Island words. I mean, this is kind of great in-game shtick, I suppose. But after playing it so many times, I'm actually quite comfortable with those abilities. If you just get into the habit of having a specific play area for it, arranging your cards left to right, and only triggering the cards from left to right, which is what the rules do, it makes it a little bit easier to handle. But certainly, yes, it's not the easiest thing, and it might be quite hard for some people to deal with. But yeah, Sentinels in the Multiverse, it's been my number 1 for ages, and it sort of keeps flipping between 1 and 2. It's my number 2 this year. I almost contemplated it, making it free underneath Hegemony, but I still love this game. It is my favorite co-op of all time. It is one of the games that my whole channel is basically a shouter for. You know, Sentinels in the Multiverse has just been one that I have championed for ages, and I get if people don't like it, but for me it just ticked every box that I wanted and still gives me a good amount of fun to this day. We're finally here. My number 1. And if you haven't worked it out by now, then you clearly haven't been paying attention, because you must have worked it out by now. This game has been on my list before, so it has risen up to be my number 1. And it was kind of no contest really, because as much as I do love the other games that have come below it, this game is one that not only do I want to play as often as I can, I will happily play it solo, I will happily play it multiplayer, I have taught it to new players before, I've had great fun, the newest expansion has made the game even better than it was before, but this is also one that I play a ton of lately. I mean, I play it at pretty much every convention. I've played it outside the convention. I mean, we had a game night at a Monday club where we were showing off the expansion to people. We played one game and then we literally finished it and thought, fancy another game? Yeah, and we literally just played another one straight after.
Get on with it.
Those sort of games have to be in my top 10, but even then, I play this a lot on Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena has a decent implementation of it on there. Granted, I wish the BGA community was a bit more friendly, but, you know, maybe I should start playing this with people who are actually on my friends list more often.
Get on with it!
Still, it's great to pick up and use as a 2-player game on BGA, and I have played it a lot of times. I mean, this is easily getting... It must easily be passed, I think, because I can't track every single game I've done, but I must easily have played this about 100 times plus by now, which for a game with the amount I've got and how much I got to review and stuff is pretty damn impressive, you know, to be able to play something that many times.
Get on with it!
It is, of course, the one that ticks a lot of people off, but for me, I love myself some Ark Nova. This one is just getting the plays, and that is why it had to rise above Sentinels, Hegemony, and Spirit Island, because at times when I've I could play a bit of Sentinels, or I could play a bit of Spirit Island, that kind of thing, I find myself playing this one a lot, and it's just, you know, animal themes certainly helps. You know, I love animals, so it's not like this doesn't give some indication for it. But with Ark Nova, there's just so much more to it. I mean, it's the only game other than Civilization: A New Dawn to feature that whole typewriter mechanic, as I call it, where you have the action row at the bottom and you trigger the card and then it resets back to strength 1 and you got to build it up again. I love that mechanic. More people need to put that in their games. But with this, it's also helped by the fact that I can set it up nice and quick, so I've got the folded space insert for it. I'm actually tempted to get the Raptor insert for it. I know that seems like a waste of money, but the Raptor insert does look nice with those UV printings, but yeah, it is a bit pricey, so I probably will be able to resist that from I'm a tax accountant who tries to save money type person. But with this, it can be set up nice and quick. And the setup for this game is not long. It really doesn't take long to set this game up, even with the expansion, when you're using these new special action cards, which are really cool in themselves. I mean, I love using these. The expansion is basically an auto-include if anybody has any concept of the game, with the sea creatures and the new action cards and bits and bobs. You know, the game is just so much fun. You know, I love trying to build my engine and trying something different on many games. Like this time I'm going to go small animals, now I'm doing large, now I'm going mostly association, like the green conservation points. Now I'm just trying to do all the projects a little bit rather than one really big one. Maybe I'll go universities, partner zoos, focus on those. Should I get all the workers out in this game? Probably not. Do I need max rep? Again, yay or nay. You know, do I want to build a bucket load of kiosks and pavilions this time, or am I going to save it? I have done some weird strategies in this game, and it's fun to see them play out. One of my favorites is the immediate release strategy, as I call it. It's basically where I start off with a 5-size creature that I can play with, and have to get the enclosure out. So it's not the most expensive 5-size creature. But what I have is then also the green conservation project to release that creature. So if I can get those three together, I've actually had games where I literally start off by going enclosure, animal, immediately release. I lose the appeal, so it does hurt my income a little bit, but those 5 conservation points early on in the game can give me a lot of acceleration for other things, and it's worked quite well for me in the past, but again, it's a weird way of playing. The latest one with these action cards, these open up some cool strategies as well. The most recent one I had was the one that let you build additional pavilions, and I found a landscape gardener card in the deck which rewarded you for doing pavilions, like getting X tokens. So half of my map, I swear, was covered in pavilions by the time I was done. My appeal went off the charts, but it was just such a weird way of playing it. Every time I used my better build card that let me do additional stuff with the engineer sponsor that lets you build an additional one of the same type, I was just able to spam pavilions, and it just led to a weird looking map where I wasn't even certain if I was actually building the zoo at that point. It was just lots of gazebos. But this game opens itself up to that kind of thing. But even without like the weird strategies in it, I just think the gameplay is fun. I love the whole economic system of trying to micromanage those 5 action cards at the bottom. That typewriter mechanic is just one that really works for me. But this is one of the occasions where it's one of those games where you're collecting icons on the cards, but you've got beautiful like photography pictures of like the various animals and stuff, which are really cool to look at. The sea dwellers have got some funky pictures as well, and it's a game of short-term goals, which I think is another reason I like it, because there are some games I like Kanban, that focus certainly a lot on having a strategy and seeing it through. This one is very much a tactical card game, and yeah, that does mean there's an element of luck, and I'm not going to deny that I've had some games where I've lost out due to bad card luck, and there may be 1 or 2 overpowered cards in this game. I'm not saying the game is flawless, okay? No game is flawless, and yeah, deal with it, no game is flawless, but with this one, I love doing the card play. I like, getting the animals out and seeing what, route I take this time.
We taught a lion to eat tofu.
It's just such a good fun game, to the point where this is almost comfort food to me. I played this at a 24-hour game marathon at 4 o'clock in the morning after I'd already been up for like 20 hours and still managed to get through a full Ark Nova game without too much trouble. The game has just got to that point where it's now buttery smooth for me. And yes, teaching it to a brand new player is going to be tricky, and this is definitely one of those games where very much, has everybody played Ark Nova before? Good. Not necessarily loads of times. They could have just played it once or twice, but at least so I don't have to do a full rules teach, because usually I have to teach them the expansion to this anyway. So that's something to be said. I do want to play this with people who have some idea of what they're doing. I don't want to play this with the amazing experts at the game, although I don't know, I think I'm pretty good at the game. I've certainly won a lot more than I've lost, but there are some people I've met on the internet who I swear live and breathe this game and will just seek to demolish you in any way, shape or form rather than just have fun. I have come across those people, but oh man, love this one. It just gets the plays. I look forward to the next play. The Arno variant, the fan-made variant for this game, really good fun. It's a bit on the difficult side, but it does allow you to play Ark Nova in a cool way solo. Not that the solo mode in the main rulebook's terrible or anything. It's fine. It's just very different from the Arno variant, but oh man, I'll play that variant, I'll play the one in the rulebook, I'll play it on Board Game Arena, I'll play it on Tabletop Simulator, I'll play it in real life. It's very difficult to get me to not want to play this game. It's just such good fun for me, and for that reason it just had to be my #1 game. It's just getting the plays. It's still going strong after all this time. Even before the expansion, it would have certainly been a contender for #1, but I think the expansion kind of solidifies it. This one is just designed for me. It ticks a lot of the boxes that I want in a heavy Euro game, with a great theme to it. I mean, yeah, the theme is not as strong here as, say, a bunch of other games that heavy Euros I mentioned, like Kanban and stuff, but nature themes do help, and maybe there's a slight bias to that, but nature and animals are nice themes, okay, people? Generic fantasy, medieval, just going up into space for no apparent reason and that, those themes aren't terribly that exciting. I get to build my little village in this little medieval area with a little forest and just, look, I built a church and I built a bakery and stuff, and it's like,
Whippy!
Those themes aren't the most great themes, okay? But I just think that animals, flora, like Earth before and stuff, I just think that nature themes are a good favourite of mine. Probably my favourite theme to stick into a game, because it it's almost like a calming feeling. Like when you play a game that's about animals and, you know, ecosystems and stuff like that, the stakes don't feel as massively high as in certain other themes, perhaps. Or it's just the fact that maybe I just find nature relaxing. I mean, I'm not a tree hugger, but, you know, and certainly I live in a town, and it's not often I go into the deep countryside or anything, but I like going to zoos. I'm on a cruise to the Netherlands later this month, and I'm going to go to Rotterdam Zoo, because I've not been there before. I'm going to not do an excursion off the cruise. I'm going to just make my own way to Rotterdam Zoo. 21st, 22nd of February, I think I'm in Rotterdam. Yeah, and 22nd, I think I'm going to the zoo. So, yeah, that should be a good fun day out. But, yeah, I love Art Nova. I'm playing it lots. I'm enjoying it lots. It has to be currently my #1 game of all time. And it's done. It is done. We are done with the top 100 for another period. 14 months since the last time I did it. So you have seen some movers and shakers on this list since last time. Certainly time has done a number on it. Now, you know, this format has worked well. It has been good fun doing this list, but it still takes up a lot of time. And I'm also coming to the realization that as much as I love watching a top 100, I mean, I'll watch the Dice Tower top 100s and have a good laugh. I do have to admit that there is a thing going around these days where I think a lot of people just aren't really that into top 100s anymore. Or if they are, they're not really caring about the ones in the lower 50. They're more interested in the ones in the top 50. And I kind of see where they're coming from, because I own a couple hundred games. About 200 games I think I own altogether, around that number. Some people own a lot more easily. But there's a lot of people out there who probably own 20, 10, 50 tops games. They don't own a ton of them. So do they really need to know about 100 other games they've not heard of? Probably not. And so it does beg the question as to whether it's worth doing a top 100 every time. So I am I'm not thinking about getting rid of the entire top 100 like forever, but maybe it's time it got condensed down, because everything in my top 100 has to be a game I've rated 8 at least to even participate in it, and it's getting harder and harder to rank the thing every year because, you know, lots of good games pile up. But maybe it's time I restricted it to top 50. Or maybe even top 25. Maybe I should really just focus on my top 25 games of all time and just do like a, you know, 1 or 2 videos on that. Or I could do a top 50 and do a maximum of 5 videos, you know, bouts of 10. Or do like 50 to 31 and 31 to 11 and then do a 10 for the last, you know, 3 videos. It would be a lot quicker to do, and it would certainly still get the point across about these games I love. You know, what are your thoughts? You know, let me know in the comments what you think. Of course, let me know what you think about these games. Do you love them? Do you hate them? What did you think of the top 100 in general? And just what are your thoughts about me maybe reducing this down to 50 or 25 in the future? Because it would save me a lot of work. And as I look at the views for all my various top 100s in the past, they get a decent amount of views, but not crazy amount of views. Not like certain top 10s of mine have done in the past, like just single top 10s. And they certainly do get better as you get higher up. So maybe it's not worth doing 100 anymore. Maybe it's better to do 50 or 25. You know, we'll see. But next time I do this will be 2025 winter time. So January, February next year again. So whether I do, probably won't do 100, because I must admit I am starting to think, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking of reducing it down. But whether it's 150 or 25, you'll see another iteration of this next year. So thank you everybody who has watched this series so far. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the Patrons. Thanks for everything. You know, back to business with more top 10s that I want to do, like anticipated games and gateway games the last 5 years, and, you know, whatever the Patrons want me to do as well. Got to get on with some reviews like Last Light, and I've already just recently done Mythwind, but there's plenty of enough stuff content-wise I want to get back to, and now the top 100's done, maybe there's a chance to do that. And obviously Wormspan will eventually hit my doorstep at some point soon. UK is always late with deliveries, but you can bet I'm going to review that one and tell you my honest thoughts on it. So yeah, there's plenty enough still to come. But thanks everybody for watching. That's it for me on this episode. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up and share the content. Share the top 100 out and let me know your thoughts in the comments, as I've already described. So for me, Fizzkig, Dice Panda, the Ottawa Bat, Yoda and the Takinoko Panda, regardless of whether your top 10 list is far different from mine, it's still, at the end of the day, only a list of games. So take care, enjoy what you enjoy, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.